When you're shopping for a monitor that's supposed to sit between your editing suite and your final output, it's easy to feel torn between the glossy promises on the product page and the practical reality of daily use. I've spent the last few weeks plugging the Blackmagic designed SmartView 4kg 3 into a production workflow that already includes a color-graded monitor and a reference display, and what I've learned is worth a few minutes of your time. If you're wondering whether this piece of equipment will actually make a difference in your day-to-day, or if it's just another pricey nice-to-have, keep watching. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the core promise, a 4K monitor that claims to handle HDR and supports Blackmagic's own DaVinci Resolve workflow natively. For a lot of creators, the biggest hesitation revolves around two questions: will it integrate smoothly with the rest of the rig, and will it actually deliver the image fidelity needed for Final Cut color work without forcing me to spend hours on calibration? I started by connecting the SmartView G3 via its dual HDMI inputs to a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and a standard laptop running Resolve. The monitor turned on almost immediately, detected the 4K signal, and displayed a clean picture with no flicker or rolling bands. That first-timer-right feel is something you don't get with every 4K panel, and it saves you the headache of hunting for the right EDID settings. Now, who should consider buying the SmartView 4kg 3? If you're a freelance videographer, a small production house, or an editor who needs a dedicated reference monitor for on-set playback and basic color grading, this device sits in a sweet spot. Its native 4K resolution gives you genuine pixel-for-pixel fidelity when you're checking composition and focus, and the HDR support, while not a full-blown Dolby Vision suite, does let you see a reasonably wide dynamic range without having to toggle external LUTs. The monitor also includes a built-in DaVinci Resolve control surface, a handful of buttons that let you toggle between timeline, source, and playback modes, which is a nice time saver when you're doing quick checks on a shoot day. On the flip side, if you're looking for a high-end grading monitor that matches the color accuracy of, say, an EIZO or a Dell Ultrasharp with factory-calibrated panels, you'll likely be disappointed. The SmartView G3 is calibrated to a Rec. .709 gamma out of the box, which is fine for most broadcast work, but it doesn't come with a hardware calibration report or a built-in spectrometer. In my tests, the color shift at extreme shadows was noticeable when compared side-by-side with a calibrated reference. That's not an issue if you're working mainly in a controlled environment and you trust your software scopes, but it does mean you'll need to spend some extra minutes in a calibration software if you demand the highest color precision. Another practical strength of the SmartView is its connectivity and workflow integration. The monitor houses a full-size SDI input, which is a rarity at this price point, and that means you can feed a clean 4K signal straight from a camera without the need for converters. I took it out to a location shoot with a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, ran a single SDI cable, and the monitor displayed a clean image throughout the day without overheating or ghosting. The built-in speakers are modest, but they're sufficient for on-set playback where you need to hear sync cues without hauling an external audio system. The monitor also supports a USB-C power delivery, letting you power it from a portable battery pack, which is a handy flexibility you don't see on many 30-inch 4K panels. But there are some hidden trade-offs to be aware of. The G3's stand is functional but not as solid as you'd find on a premium monitor. When you tilt it forward to get a better viewing angle, you'll notice a slight wobble, especially if you're using a heavier camera rig on top of it. That may not be a deal-breaker for a fixed studio setup, but if you plan to move the monitor frequently between locations, you might want to budget for a sturdier third-party mounting solution. Also, the monitor's refresh rate caps at 60 Hz. For most video work that's perfectly fine, but if you're also using the screen for high frame rate gaming or motion-critical esports analysis, you'll feel the limitation. From a value-for-money perspective, the SmartView 4kg 3 sits in a pricing bracket that often feels ambiguous. At roughly the mid-range for 4K monitors, you're paying for the Blackmagic brand's ecosystem and the built-in DaVinci shortcuts, rather than for raw panel performance. If you already own a Blackmagic camera or you're deep into Resolve, the integration benefits can actually translate into time saved. A couple of minutes each day might not sound like much, but over a project that's worth several $100s. If you're not tied to the Blackmagic workflow, You might find cheaper alternatives that give you similar resolution and HDR support without the extra monitor-specific buttons. In a nutshell, the SmartView 4kg 3 works best as a dedicated playback.